Good evening. It has been quite a day here at Channel 4, and tonight security is being beefed up at KNBC after a gunman walked into our news studio right here this afternoon and on live television at gunpoint ordered consumer reporter David Horowitz to read a message live on television.
Live television is supposed to be controlled. It's the place where mistakes become bloopers, where awkward silences become memes, where everyone watching at home assumes there's a producer somewhere who can hit a button and make the chaos stop. But a handful of times, that button either didn't exist or it got pressed too late. Tonight, we're counting down 5 of the most disturbing reality TV and live broadcast moments ever caught on camera. Moments where the people on screen thought they were still performing, right up until you can tell they weren't. And one of these cases has a split-second detail that most people miss the first time. But once you notice it, the entire clip feels different. So yeah, stick around because the last one doesn't just get dark. It gets wrong. Before we start, make sure the lights are low. These stories hit differently in the dark. On this channel, we cover strange, dark, and mysterious stories. I upload a few times a week, so subscribe if you're ready for more moments that shouldn't have happened on live broadcast. In 1987, David Horowitz was working at KNBC Channel 4 in Los Angeles, doing consumer reporting, regular studio days, scripted segments, and the usual controlled rhythm of a live newscast. Viewers at home expected the same thing: a calm anchor, a clean set, and problems that stayed safely inside the story. One afternoon, during a live segment, Horowitz heard footsteps behind him close enough to feel wrong. He glanced back, and in that instant, he saw it. A man standing just off his shoulder with what looked like a gun pressed into Horowitz's back. Horowitz didn't shout. He didn't bolt. He stayed steady because he understood what panic can trigger. The man, later identified as Gary Stolman, handed Horowitz a sheet of paper and demanded he read it on air. Horowitz started talking like he was delivering the news, but he was signaling to the control room and the audience that something was happening without escalating the guy behind him. Every second stretched, Horowitz asking simple questions, trying to humanize the threat, trying to keep the situation from tipping. Meanwhile, inside the station, staff later described the confusion. A guest had gotten close enough to go live, and now everyone had to choose between cutting the feed or letting a hostage situation unfold in real time. The decision came fast, because airing a manifesto can be the whole point. Roughly half a minute in, the broadcast abruptly cut to black. But in the studio, Horowitz still had to play along, reading the paper because he believed a real gun was inches from his spine, until the threat finally broke and the man was restrained. Later, it came out the weapon wasn't what viewers feared it was, an unloaded BB gun. But the terror in that moment was real. And the most unsettling part is how quickly live TV stopped being entertainment and became a hostage negotiation without warning. But if that first moment was terrifying because everyone knew it was dangerous, the next one's disturbing for the opposite reason, because nobody realized what they were watching until it was too late. In 1984, Tommy Cooper was a legendary British comedian and magician, performing in London on a televised variety show. His routine was famously built on mistakes that weren't really mistakes, props that seemed to fail, pauses that felt accidental, and clumsy beats that always paid off with a laugh. During the live broadcast, Cooper stepped out in his cape and began to fumble. Nothing unusual for him. At first, it looked like the start of another bit. The audience did what they'd been trained to do by decades of his act. They laughed because this was the pattern. This was the language of Tommy Cooper. But then the bit didn't dissolve. Instead of snapping back into control, Cooper slumped, slowly, heavily, like the floor was pulling him down. The room stayed warm with laughter for a few seconds longer than it should have, because nobody wants to be the first person to stop laughing at a comedian, especially when the comedian's whole identity is collapsing on purpose. And that's where it turns eerie. The longer he didn't get up, the more the silence had to fight its way in. Meanwhile, the production team had to make a split-second decision that no one prepares for. If they cut away too early, they ruin the act. If they don't cut away, they risk broadcasting a man dying. The audience couldn't see the control room, but you can feel the moment the professionals realized this wasn't comedy timing anymore. The show abruptly went to a break. Behind the curtain, people rushed to him. Suddenly, the stage wasn't a stage. It was an emergency. And the horrifying twist is that the most Tommy Cooper moment imaginable, him falling mid-trick, was the moment his act couldn't protect him anymore. Cooper died that night after collapsing on live television. To this day, the clip feels like a trap for your brain. You start laughing because you're told to, and then you realize you're watching the exact second a room full of people misunderstood reality. If Tommy Cooper's moment was terrifying because everyone mistook a real medical emergency for a joke, the next one is worse in a different way, because it was a planned stunt designed for live spectacle, and it still went catastrophically wrong. In 1999, Owen Hart, performing under the Blue Blazer character, was part of a WWF pay-per-view event. The kind of show built on big entrances, bigger reactions, and carefully timed chaos. The audience came expecting a scripted shock, a laugh, and then the match. Everything about the night was engineered to feel dangerous without actually being dangerous. During his entrance, Hart was being lowered from high above the ring using a harness system, an elaborate, superhero-style descent meant to set up a comedic beat. At first, it looked like it was going exactly as planned, but then something tiny changed. He dropped in a way that didn't look controlled, and the stunt stopped reading like choreography. For the crowd, there's a split second where confusion takes over, because wrestling teaches you to doubt your own instincts. You're trained to ask, is this real or is this part of the show? That hesitation is the most chilling part, because hesitation is time, and time is everything when something's gone truly wrong. And then the broadcast reacts the way live TV always reacts when it can't explain what's happening, by pulling your eyes away. The feed cuts. The camera avoids the ring, and suddenly you're watching a room full of people who don't know what to do with their own silence. Meanwhile, the announcers have an impossible job. Keep the audience from panicking. Don't lie so hard that you make it worse. They begin signaling carefully that this isn't a storyline, this isn't scripted, and whatever just happened was real. Hart had fallen from the rigging during the entrance and suffered catastrophic injuries. The reveal wasn't a twist in a narrative. It was the worst kind of confirmation. The moment everyone understands that the stunt wasn't close to danger, it was danger. Owen Hart died that night, and what makes this broadcast moment linger is the same brutal theme running through all these stories. When something truly unthinkable happens on live television, the first few seconds are always confusion, because the human mind keeps reaching for the comfort of it's part of the show. If Owen Hart's fall was horrifying because a single stunt failed in front of thousands of fans, the next moment's worse for a different reason, because one tiny mistake turned an entire stadium into a death trap in under 5 minutes. In 1985, Bradford City were playing their final home match of the season at Valley Parade. Families, kids, and lifelong supporters packed into the old wooden main stand, eating, smoking, chatting, treating it like any other Saturday afternoon at the football game. The cameras were there to capture a routine end-of-season game, not a disaster.
And we've actually got a fire in the stand on the far side of the ground. And that looks very nasty indeed. Now the police have gone over there to try and quell the fire.
Just before halftime, a few fans near the back of the stand noticed a strange orange glow beneath their seats, small enough to look harmless, like a bit of rubbish catching light. At first, they tried to stamp it out, even pouring drinks on it. It felt like an inconvenience, not an emergency.
And the game has obviously had to stop. I saw the smoke about a minute ago.
But instead of dying, the fire found years of dried trash and wood under the stand and began to spread. Smoke thickened. Flames crawled forward. People in the front rows were still watching the match, while those further back were starting to panic, shouting, pointing, trying to move. The cameras kept rolling as the small glow turned into a wall of fire racing toward thousands of people with nowhere easy to go.
And the police are doing a tremendous job in getting people out of the stand and onto the pitch. But a day of triumph could turn into a day of disaster here for Bradford.
On commentary, you can hear the moment the tone shifts from curiosity to fear. Someone noting, "There's a fire in the stand," as if they're trying to convince themselves it can still be handled. Down at pitch level, players and officials suddenly realize the real game is now getting people out, not getting the ball forward. Within minutes, the entire stand is engulfed, exit gates jammed, some doors were locked.
Second division for the first time in 50 years, and now they're running for their lives. The players are having to leave the pitch, and obviously they're back in the tunnels. The heat is now becoming tremendous. I'm sitting immediately opposite the main stand.
And chaotic crowds tried to escape over barriers and onto the pitch as burning debris fell around them. The broadcast no longer looked like sport. It looked like a battlefield made of wood and smoke. 56 people died, and hundreds were injured, many of them still wearing the burned clothes they'd arrived in for a simple match. To this day, the footage is almost unbearable to watch because you can see the exact moment a normal afternoon turns into a catastrophe that no one in that stadium will ever forget. If the Bradford fire is disturbing because thousands of people watched a disaster unfold in real time, the last one is worse in a quieter way, because the most chilling moment comes from a single person trying very hard to look normal on camera. In 2011, 27-year-old law graduate Lauren Giddings was living near Mercer University in Georgia, finishing school and preparing to take the bar exam. Her life was demanding but structured. Classes, studying, staying close to family and friends, all built around the hope of becoming a public defender and helping people who couldn't afford a lawyer. When Lauren suddenly stopped answering calls and messages, friends and family knew something was wrong. Days went by with no sign of her, and police were called to check her apartment. Then a partial body, just a torso, was discovered in a trash bin near her building. And the story instantly shifted from missing person to something far darker. News crews arrived, doing what they always do in a case like this, talking to neighbors, gathering B-roll, trying to understand who Lauren was. One of the people they interviewed was a soft-spoken neighbor named Steven McDaniel. At first, he sounded like a worried classmate, calmly explaining that no one had seen her in days, that they were all concerned, that he couldn't imagine who would hurt her.
I've always heard noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much. I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is.
Then the reporter mentioned on camera that a body believed to be Lauren's had just been found nearby. McDaniel's reaction was instant and unnerving. He froze. His face seemed to drain, and he muttered that he needed to sit down. To viewers at home, it looked like a man blindsided by horrific news. To investigators watching closely, it was a moment worth pausing. As the investigation continued, police focused more on McDaniel. Inside his apartment, they eventually found disturbing evidence, covert recordings of Lauren's place, and a saw with blood on it. The shocked neighbor from the interview was arrested and later admitted to using a master key to enter her apartment, killing her, and dismembering her body in the bathtub. Steven McDaniel is now serving a life sentence. What makes that interview one of the most disturbing moments caught on camera is the hindsight. You're watching a man talk about a woman's disappearance while knowing he already understands exactly what happened because he's the one who made her disappear. Some of these moments ended with answers, arrests, and policy changes, but others still leave that unnerving feeling that we only saw a fraction of what really happened. And that's the thing about live television and reality formats. They're supposed to be controlled, but every once in a while, they accidentally show us something we were never meant to witness. If you want more strange, dark, and disturbing stories caught on camera, consider subscribing. Turn the lights down again when you come back. I'll see you in the next one.